President Trump is once again showing he is no longer going to put up with the out-of-control left-wing media bias. And this weekend in Florida, the president once again took direct aim at these corrupt news organizations. Take a look at this.
The dishonest media, which has published one false story after another, with no sources, even though they pretend they have them, they make them up in many cases. They just don't want to report the truth, and they've been calling us wrong now for 2 years. They don't get it, but they're starting to get it. I can tell you that. They've become a big part of the problem. They are part of the corrupt system. But despite all their lies, misrepresentations, and false stories, they could not defeat us in the primaries, and they could not defeat us in the general election, and we will continue to expose them for what they are, and most importantly, we will continue to win, win, win. We are not going to let the fake news tell us what to do, how to live, or what to believe. We are free and independent people, and we will make our own choices.
So the alt-left propaganda media and their response so pathetically predictable. Let's take a sneak look.
Trump's attacks on the American press as enemies of the American people are more treacherous than Richard Nixon's attacks on the press. Nixon's attacks on the press were largely in private. There's a history of what enemy of the people that phrase means as used by dictators and authoritarians, including Stalin, including Hitler, and I'm not about to say anything about comparing Hitler and Trump, but it's a demagogue's statement.
Somebody's going to get hurt. It's just a question of time, because just like in every other dynamic in life, if you take somebody who's got a legitimate reason to be upset in the first place and you pump them up and it starts to become a call to action, somebody's going to get hurt.
As long as American democracy remains healthy, there will be reporters willing to pursue the truth, even if that means incurring the wrath of the most powerful person in the world. A free press isn't the enemy of America. It's a big part of what makes America great.
All right, what's now obvious and so transparent is that the abusively biased press, they've now declared war on President Trump. And by the way, in turn, you, the American people who put him in office. Now we're seeing just how relevant, for example, WikiLeaks was. Remember, they exposed the rampant collusion between the press and the Clinton campaign. They had a stake in this election. And of course, they were one-sided, abusively so. Our suspicions have now been confirmed. All these left-wing news outlets, they thought they'd be able to stop Donald Trump from becoming president. Just take a look at how the media laughed off the idea of Donald Trump becoming president and winning the White House.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
Do it. Look at me. Do it. I will personally write you a campaign check now on behalf of this country, which does not want you to be president, but which badly wants you to run.
We better be ready for the fact that he might be leading the Republican ticket next.
I know you don't believe that, but I want to go on.
Sorry, which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
So instead of admitting they were wrong, these media outlets, they have now doubled down on their attacks against President Trump. Now, let me explain. Let me give a little history lesson. Remember back in 2007, 2008, the media never vetted President Barack Obama and his radical, ideological left-wing agenda. They didn't talk about Frank Marshall Davis, Acorn, being an Alinsky disciple. They didn't even bother to look into a relationship with his unrepentant domestic terrorist friend, Bill Ayers, and Bernardine Dorrance. He was asked one time about that, and it was a question that I fed to George Stephanopoulos on my radio show. No, the media only asked about Ayers one time, and then Reverend Wright, the Church of GD America. Well, the press was a year behind that, too, and they barely covered the story, and if it was Donald Trump, you know it would be different. The media didn't want to report on Barack Obama's radical associations, we did on this program. Then Obama became president. All right, he's in there 8 years. The media didn't go anywhere near his real record on the economy. We were not afraid on this show to give you the real numbers. For example, millions more out of the labor force, millions more living in poverty, millions more on food stamps, and Obama accumulated more debt than every other president before him combined. When President Trump talks about inheriting a mess, those numbers are the ones he's referring to. And then there's Hillary Clinton. WikiLeaks. They exposed just how in bed the media was with her. Just take a look at all the media outlets that, for example, RSVP'd to the 2015 dinner, allegedly at John Podesta's house. It's all the major media outlets except for Fox News. And on election night, remember after Donald Trump won, it was like a funeral at every one of these networks. Even Martha Raddatz, who hosted a debate, she was crying. Watch this.
That's a pretty extraordinary thing to say. If you have a son in the Marine Corps and that you don't trust the commander-in-chief. The people in the military defend the Constitution.
America is crying tonight. I'm not sure how much of America, but a very, very significant portion, and I mean literally crying. I've gotten texts from a college campus about a dorm that's just in tears.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
I'm still having a hard time getting myself used to standing on this earth right now. This is a different earth today than it was 24 hours ago.
Martha Raddatz crying? Really? A white lash? I guess everybody that voted for Trump is racist? That is how abusively biased the media in this country is. So here's where we are today. Has this abusively biased media changed? Have they learned anything? Have they apologized for their collusion, their misreporting? Absolutely not. And worse, you look at what they're doing now. They're ignoring President Trump's accomplishments, which we will go over tonight in 30 days. Now, they're never going to tell you, the American people, the truth. They have a clear, radical left-wing agenda. And by the way, they're also lazy. They won't report that Trump has ordered federal agencies to ease the burden of Obamacare and seeks to repeal and replace Obamacare, that he took action to freeze new and pending regulations. He withdrew the U.S. from TPP like he promised. He instituted a government hiring freeze. He banned, literally, some countries from getting funds that provide abortions abroad. Issued 5 executive actions advancing Keystone and the Dakota Access pipelines, which, by the way, will create jobs and lead to energy independence. And also he issued actions on construction of a border wall, stripping money from sanctuary cities, all promises, issued executive actions on extreme vetting. He'll win that eventually. Also issued executive action on rebuilding the military. He issued executive action to draft a plan to defeat ISIS, which should probably be in his hands today or tomorrow. He instituted a 5-year lobbying ban for administration officials so he can drain the swamp. He nominated an originalist to the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch. He signed a House Joint Resolution, number 38, to help the coal industry get back into business, sanctioned Iran over their ballistic missile program, negotiated lower prices on F-35 fighter jets and Air Force One with companies like Intel, with Boeing and others. Then, of course, he met with Intel, Ford, General Motors, Fiat Chrysler, and all these other companies to incentivize them to come back into America and build jobs here. And, of course, his economic plan will also help with that. He signed executive orders to protect police officers that are under fire. He signed executive orders to target drug cartels. He launched a council for the advancement of women entrepreneurs. He called or met with over 30 foreign leaders so far. And Trump made a big announcement today by appointing Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster to be the new National Security Advisor. Is anybody in the press focused on any of this? They'd rather spend their days going after the president for a comment he makes about Sweden, which, by the way, he was right about. And the media is perfectly willing to continue to mislead and lie to you, the American people. It's so clear. They are collectively, the news media, at war with the president because their little egos are bruised and they have been exposed. And they're waging this battle by focusing in on superfluous, non-important issues, citing unnamed sources. And the press has called this president every name in the book. Are they inciting violence by calling him racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, a sexist, a liar, even a dictator? because they're basically throwing around names with the hopes something may stick one day. And they go out there and report breathlessly about whatever the tweet is of the day. But the biggest point I want to make tonight is this. The mainstream media's audience, their viewers, listeners, readers, they are not you, the American people. They are not the forgotten men and women in poverty on food stamps, out of the labor force that can't buy a house. We have the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. It's not the oceans of red in the middle of the country. You see the little slivers of blue, coastal elites? Well, that's who the media is catering to. Out-of-touch liberals know nothing about you, nothing about your problems, don't seem to care about the millions more in poverty on food stamps and out of work, the people that are struggling, because they're trapped, overpaid, lazy in their bubbles, and seem to care less about the plight of the average, hardworking, blue-collar Americans that make this country great. That's why they didn't think that Donald Trump could win. It's why they can't, for the life of them, understand why he is connecting with the American people. And the American people are so happy that he's taking this corrupt, Pravda-like media on every day. Because you got an alt-left propaganda media, they have proven they can never be trusted. They lie, they mislead, they distort, and they have an agenda, a left-wing radical agenda. That's why they were colluding with Hillary. In reality, they're modern-day propagandists. You know, other countries, we see it, you know, liberal state-run media. They are the biggest mouthpiece for the left wing in the country. This is gross malpractice because what they're doing to you, the American people, is a great disservice. They should be ashamed of themselves. This is exactly why the president calls them fake news, because you cannot trust them any longer. That's just a fact.